Hello, and welcome to ASMReading. My name is Dick Cooper, and I'll be your host this evening. Tonight we have a very special book planned for y'all. This is written by a very close personal friend of mine, entitled Sleeping, by Miss Audrey Marsh. It is available on Amazon. It's available on Kindle, softcover, and hardcover, which I got. Hoping to get it signed once she sees this. According to the back here, this book was written when Audrey was 19 years old, but she's been writing ever since she was old enough to hold a crayon. Homeschooled with her 6 younger siblings and grew up surrounded by goats, cats, chickens, rabbits, and a slew of other animals. When she's not writing, Audrey enjoys baking vegan desserts, playing the same 10 or so songs on the piano, and painting pictures with very bold lines and bright colors. She resides in New Mexico with a houseplant named James, who's not a very great conversationalist, understandably, but I can ascertain for a fact that she knows at least 1 or 2 people who are. Diving right in. Chapter 1. Hey, Ellie. I ran up to him, giggling in excitement. At 8 years old, my brother Joshua was 2 years older than me, and a lot braver, which meant I could count on him to do things that I wouldn't dare dream of. Look at this, he murmured, holding out his cupped hands. I found him on the windowsill. I stared at the tiny black lizard in amazement, wanting to touch it, but also wanting very much to get away. His name is Hammy. I named him just now. You can hold. Hammy suddenly decided that now was as good a time as any to make his escape. So with all the daring of a suicide bomber with a fingernail-sized brain, he leapt at me. I jumped, screamed, and swatted Hammy to the ground. Then I passed out and dropped down to the ground too, unconscious. For only a moment my eyes were shut. Then I blinked and realized that I was still on my feet, although not in the same place as before. My heart was pounding, and a scary thought rushed through my head. Did I kill her? I stared down and gasped as I saw my body, Ellie's body, lying spread eagle on the ground with my eyes closed and my black hair spread out around my head. But if that was Ellie, then who was I? I looked down at my hands enclosed and realized at once I was Joshua. Panic welled up in my throat. I just died and become Joshua? I dropped to my knees and pressed my ear against Ellie's chest. To my relief, she was breathing steadily and deeply. I shook her gently. Come on, me, wake up, I pleaded softly, but Ellie stayed asleep. Her unconscious form wavered as tears blurred my vision. What would my parents say when they found out that Ellie wouldn't wake up, and Joshua was... I sobbed aloud. Where was Joshua? I pulled Ellie's eyelid open and wept over her sightless gaze. Please, wake up. My body stirred slightly. Then suddenly I was laying on the ground, blinking and rubbing my eyes. Joshua kneeled over me, his eyes closed. As I watched, he opened them and stared at me. Ellie, are you okay? He helped me to my feet. Then he put a hand to his forehead. A strange look was on his face as he asked, Did I just fall asleep right now? Did you see? I shook my head violently. No, but I did. I rapidly explained how I'd passed out and woken up as Joshua, while my brother listened in concerned interest. When I had finished, he rubbed his chin thoughtfully. My guess, he mused, is you've got superpowers. Really? That's the only explanation for it, Joshua admitted. Can you do that again, changing bodies with me or whatever? I concentrated, but nothing happened. I shook my head apologetically. Joshua sighed. Well, it doesn't matter. No one masters their powers right away. Like Spider-Man, he was sticking all around everything before he got the hang of it. I accepted his explanation without question. So, I guess I have to fight bad guys now, I said regretfully. Well, no, dummy. First you gotta be older and get muscles. Then you fight bad guys. But I don't know how to get muscles. Well, Joshua patted my head. For now, just work on getting old, he told me wisely. I will be your mentor and train you to use your powers for good. And I told him that I was eternally grateful. It's what big brothers do, he modestly replied. We agreed never to tell our parents. They found out anyway. After I passed out during dinner one night, they rushed me to the doctor, who confirmed I had narcolepsy. Bouts of sleeping were triggered by high emotion, fear, excitement, joy, etc. That particular evening, I had fallen asleep because I laughed too hard at one of Joshua's jokes. For some reason, though, I hadn't moved out of my body at all. It puzzled me. I lay awake until midnight thinking about it. Then I crept into Joshua's room and flicked on the light. "Blunt me what?" he mumbled thickly, sitting up and peering at me through heavy eyelids. "Joshua, did my powers leave?" I asked urgently. He sighed and passed a hand over his face. I don't know, El. You didn't move to another person like last time?" I shook my head, feeling tears begin to creep up behind my eyes. "Hey, it's all right, Ellie. Maybe it'll come back. But if it doesn't, that's okay. Being a superhero, it's a lot of work. I mean, you'd probably get sick of it." I brushed my tears away with the back of my hand. "Sorry I woke you up, Joshua." "That's all right," Joshua sighed. "I'm totally wide awake now, though." "So am I." So we snuck downstairs and poured ourselves glasses of milk, adding a large splash of cream and a fourth cup of sugar to each cup. After we drank the grainy concoctions, we stumbled back to bed. I still felt as if I'd let Joshua down by losing my powers, but I finally decided that it didn't matter. I didn't exactly want to be a hero anyway. That guy scared me. 6 years later, my narcolepsy had worsened. I fell asleep frequently, and maintaining a constant calm demeanor became a daily chore. The only bonus to my condition was that my superpower, as it were, came back. In these instances, I found out that the people who I traded bodies with had no idea I was possessing them and thought that they themselves had been the ones who randomly passed out. It only happened 5 more times since the first incident before Joshua, who I told everything, noticed a pattern. "Eliana, I have a theory," he whispered excitedly one day as we rode the bus home from school. "Okay, get this. Last night, when the fire alarm went off, you got scared and fell asleep, right? But Mom was scared too, and me and Dad weren't." "But I traded bodies with Mom," I interrupted. "Exactly. Now, I could be wrong, but it seems like you trade bodies with someone else who's worked up too, as if their emotion is what allows you to possess them." So I stared at my crazy conspiracy theorist brother. Slowly I said, "Well, I guess that makes sense." "I want to test this," he continued. "I'll try and get you and Dad worked up during dinner and see if you can switch." "Well, how are you going to do that?" I asked hesitantly. "I'll make you laugh or something. Trust me, I think it'll work." I need not have worried about how Joshua planned to attempt the test. As soon as we were all seated for dinner, my mother stood up, grinning shyly. "Honey," she addressed my father, "I have a surprise for you." Dad looked up from his fried chicken expectantly. "I'm pregnant." Instantly, Joshua jumped to his feet and whooped. Dad began choking, and I was so startled I fell asleep. For a moment, I was gazing into darkness. 3 glowing human figures hovered on the edge of my vision, the middle one blue and slightly clearer than the other 2, which were dimmer and more purple. I felt myself moving towards the brightest of the 3. Then I blinked and opened my eyes to find myself in Dad's body, and I was instantly hit with the thought, another child? I struggled to swallow the news and the crispy chicken at the same time. "Darling, are you okay?" Mom asked nervously. I grabbed my glass of water and chugged it down before the chicken dislodged and I was able to talk again. "Well, that's great," I gasped. "I'm going to have another sibling. Child, I mean." I hastily corrected myself. I offered her a smile, but to my surprise, my mother wasn't looking at me. She was staring at Ellie's slumped, gently snoring body. "I hate when she does that," Mom snapped. "Why can't she just be normal? She's going to spend most of her life asleep at this rate." Joshua stopped dancing. He looked over at me and instantly knew by the hurt and surprise on Dad's face that I was watching all of this. He went over to Eliana and gently stroked the back of her head, protesting, "Mom, she can't help it." The next thing I knew, I was sitting up, blinking very hard, both to get my eyes to adjust to the light and to hold back tears. Dad opened his eyes in confusion and said, I can't believe you're pregnant again. I just can't." He laughed weakly. I felt like I just passed out or something. Goodness. "How are we going to afford another child?" My mother turned her glare on him and opened her mouth. "Hey, Ellie," Joshua muttered in my ear. Let's go outside." Our parents were too caught up in their sudden argument to pay attention to us as we snuck out the back door. As it shut, I turned my tear-stained face towards my brother. Shh, Ellie, don't cry. She hates me, I can tell. I always see her glaring at me, and now I know why. She doesn't hate you, Joshua bit his lip. She just doesn't like the fact that I'm not normal. I spat, yeah, I get it. I stormed away a few steps and came back and sat down on the grass and cried. Joshua handed me a biscuit he'd snatched and patted my back consolingly. On top of everything, my experiment didn't even work, he said glumly. Yes, it did, I contradicted, my sadness momentarily forgotten. We were all excited, Ellie. There was no way to tell. I said no, but... I paused to swallow the biscuit. You were right. When I fell asleep, I saw the three of you. Kind of. It was just your shapes glowing. And I think I could tell somehow that Dad had the most energy, I think it is. He was brighter than you and Mom, and more blue, not purple. Joshua's mouth gaped. No way, he breathed. Oh my gosh, Elle, you really do have superpowers. I felt a thrill of excitement, then my face fell. But why do they only work sometimes? What good are powers if you can't control them? Don't you see, if no one around you is excited, nothing happens. So you can sort of control it. You just have to get someone around you excited too. Easier said than done, I muttered, polishing off the last of the biscuit. Hey, that's what I'm here for. Wow, I bet we can have some real fun with this. Joshua chuckled sincerely. Aren't we supposed to be fighting baddies, though? Sure, he agreed, but first you need more practice, and with using your power, don't you think? Trust me, I'm going to get you in a crime-fighting shape in no time. My faithful mentor patted my shoulder. I already have a plan forming, and it involves Debbie Robinson. End of chapter 1. So far an interesting read, a very intriguing concept. I'm eager to know what more is in store. And if you are too, stay tuned for the next episode of ASM Reading. Good night and farewell.